Sometimes I wonder if everything would have turned out differently if I had never trusted them. My parents' voices still echo in my mind, filled with warmth and hope, proudly telling anyone who would listen about my bright future. I can still vividly recall my 8th birthday, balloons floating around me, laughter filling the air, when my father lifted me onto his shoulders and declared, "Kimmy's going to have a brilliant life. Her college fund is all set and she'll never have to worry about a thing." Those words had been my security blanket, wrapping around my childhood dreams, assuring me that I could chase any path my heart desired. But now, standing in the cold, sterile silence of the bank, reality stripped away every comforting layer I had clung to. "I'm sorry, Miss Blake," the bank manager said softly, her eyes brimming with uneasy sympathy. "There's nothing left. The account was emptied almost 2 years ago." A chill crept over me, my heartbeat pounding painfully against my ribs. "Emptied? That's impossible," I whispered, gripping the desk to steady myself. She slid a piece of paper toward me. "Withdrawn by your parents," she confirmed gently. Betrayal clamped around my heart, squeezing until my vision blurred with tears. How could they do this? My legs felt unsteady as I stumbled out of the bank, my mind racing between disbelief and denial. Every cherished memory now twisted cruelly into something painful rather than reassuring. Driven by anger and confusion, I stormed into my parents' house. My mother sat calmly at the kitchen table, sipping coffee as if she hadn't just torn my world apart. My father stood by the window staring out absently. "How could you?" My voice trembled with hurt and accusation. "You took everything from my savings." "Why?" They exchanged a glance, no hint of remorse between them. My mother's voice was steady, almost dismissive. "Eva needed it more, Kimberly. She was struggling." "Struggling?" I echoed, barely recognizing my own voice. "Eva just bought a house. I was counting on that money." "Yes," my father said flatly, finally turning to face me. "She bought her home because we helped her. She's had difficulties you wouldn't understand. You've always been the spoiled one. It's time you learned to stand on your own." His words struck like blows, knocking the air from my lungs. Spoiled? I had followed every rule, worked tirelessly to make them proud, yet somehow it was never enough. The injustice burned sharply in my chest, my body trembling from hurt and confusion. "But you told me it was mine, for my future," I whispered, my voice barely audible. My mother sighed, setting down her cup, irritation flickering in her eyes. "Eva deserved it more. Honestly, Kimberly, everything has always been so easy for you. Can't you handle one setback without throwing a tantrum?" I stood frozen, the sting of her words reopening every old wound I had buried beneath forced smiles and quiet assurances. A wave of nausea rose in my throat as my childhood trust shattered completely, the warmth I had once known replaced by a harsh, unforgiving chill. The parents I thought I knew, the ones I believed had protected me, had just made it painfully clear how disposable I truly was. "You lied to me," I said, my voice strengthening with a raw edge of determination. "All these years, you let me believe I mattered to you just as much as Eva." My father turned away dismissively, his gaze returning to the garden outside. "Grow up, Kimberly. This is real life. Not everything revolves around you." Their casual cruelty cut deep, embedding itself in my heart. But beneath the pain, something else began to stir. A defiant fire sparked by the brutal truth they had forced upon me. I would no longer be their doormat. As I turned to leave, my vision blurred with tears, but this time they weren't just from hurt. They burned with anger, betrayal, and the first seeds of a plan forming in the quiet chaos of my mind. They thought they had silenced me, kept me neatly in line. They had no idea how wrong they were. Stepping outside, I sucked in a shaky breath, determined and unbroken. I knew what I had to do. My parents had rewritten my past without my permission, but I would take control of the future. They would learn the consequences of betraying someone they never imagined would fight back. That night, Sleep eluded me as memories flooded my mind, revealing patterns of favoritism I had long ignored. I recalled countless birthdays where Eva received extravagant gifts, while mine were forgotten, brushed aside with casual apologies. My academic achievements had been met with indifferent nods, paling in comparison to the exaggerated praise for Eva's minor accomplishments. Every family conversation had subtly revolved around Eva's needs, her mistakes excused and rationalized, while mine were magnified as proof of my supposed selfishness. Desperate for understanding, I decided to confront Eva, clinging to a fragile hope that she might acknowledge my pain. I found her lounging casually on her patio sipping wine, surrounded by friends whose laughter stilled as I approached. "Eva, we need to talk," I said carefully, fighting to keep my voice steady. She raised an eyebrow, smirking dismissively. "About what now?" "Our parents used my savings for your house," I stated plainly, watching her closely, waiting for even the slightest flicker of remorse. Eva threw her head back and laughed, amusement dancing in her eyes. "You're so spoiled and selfish, Kim. Stop whining. Honestly, it wasn't even your money, it was just sitting there, wasted on you." Her friends exchanged awkward glances, clearly uncomfortable, but Eva didn't care. My cheeks burned, humiliation mixing with fury. I turned to leave, but before I could take another step, I heard her gleeful voice behind me. "Can you believe she actually thinks she deserved that money? Like she's ever had to struggle for anything." Each cruel word cut deeper, slicing through the last fragile threads of hope I had held onto. Something inside me snapped. Anger ignited fully, searing away the last traces of hesitation. Eva thought she had won, but she had no idea the battle had only just begun. In the days that followed, a hollow ache settled deep within me. My parents had always assumed I was strong enough to handle anything alone, their neglect disguised as confidence in my independence. But now, faced with their undeniable favoritism, I felt utterly invisible. At a family gathering, I drifted quietly from one conversation to another, always lingering on the fringes. My mother's laughter rang sharp as she proudly described Eva's new house to distant relatives. My father's voice boomed as he spoke of Eva's so-called achievements, conveniently overlooking her countless mistakes. Feeling suffocated, I stepped onto the porch for fresh air, only to find Uncle Richard leaning against the railing, watching me with kind eyes. Richard had always been different, gentle, observant, thoughtful. The one family member who genuinely seemed to notice me. "Hey Kim," he said softly, concern evident in his tone. "You doing okay?" My throat tightened, emotions rising to the surface. Unable to hold back any longer, I admitted everything. The betrayal, Eva's mockery, my parents' cruel indifference. Richard listened in silence, his expression darkening with understanding and sympathy. "I'm so sorry, Kimberly," he finally said, his voice thick with sincerity. "I've watched them treat you unfairly for years, and I should have said something sooner." I shook my head, wiping away the tears clinging to my cheeks. "It's not your fault, Uncle Richard." He sighed heavily, his gaze distant. "Family loyalty should never come at the expense of your own self-worth, Kim. Remember that." His words struck deep, planting a powerful realization within me. All my life, I had desperately sought my parents' approval, believing that loyalty to family was unconditional. But in that moment, clarity hit me like a storm. I owed nothing to those who had consistently treated me as an afterthought. With renewed strength, I met Richard's eyes, determination hardening my voice. "You're right. They've made their choice. Now I'll make mine." A gentle smile tugged at Richard's lips, pride shining in his eyes. "Whatever you choose to do, Kimberly, know that you aren't alone." His unwavering support was the lifeline I had desperately needed. It ignited a courage I hadn't known I possessed. It was time my family faced the consequences of their actions. For days I carefully gathered evidence, determined to leave no loose ends. Each step forward felt both empowering and devastating. The cruel necessity of exposing the very people who had raised me creating a constant ache in my chest. But the more I uncovered, the more I realized how deep their betrayal ran. In a quiet office downtown, I sat across from a lawyer, my fingers twisting nervously in my lap. "Your parents didn't just withdraw the funds," she explained gently, her eyes kind yet serious. "They committed bank fraud, Kimberly. Your signature was forged. They falsified investment documents. This is a serious crime." My heart pounded painfully as the weight of her words settled over me. The betrayal had gone beyond emotional wounds. It was criminal. I swallowed hard, steadying my voice. "What happens next?" She slid a file toward me. "We build a case. But once you move forward, Kimberly, there's no turning back." I nodded slowly, resolute. They didn't leave me a choice. After leaving the lawyer's office, the weight of my decision pressed heavily on my shoulders. I needed reassurance, someone to lean on. Instinctively, I sought out Uncle Richard, the one person who had always been my anchor. We met at a quiet cafe, where his steady presence soothed my restless heart. "Uncle Richard," I began softly, sipping warm tea that barely eased my nerves, "did you know about this? About them taking my money?" He sighed deeply, regret clouding his eyes. "I didn't know how far they had gone. I confronted them once about their favoritism toward Eva, but instead of listening, they shut me out completely. I've regretted not pushing harder ever since." His admission stung, but it also confirmed what I had known deep down. I wasn't overreacting. My pain was valid. Richard reached out, placing a comforting hand over mine. "You're brave, Kim. You don't owe them your silence." His support emboldened me, reinforcing my resolve. Quietly, I began planning a dinner, a family gathering under the guise of reconciliation. My parents eagerly accepted, likely assuming I had come crawling back, ready to apologize. Eva agreed smugly, believing she had already won. The evening of the dinner arrived, tension coiling tightly inside me. The house felt foreign now, each wall echoing memories tainted by betrayal. Eva lounged confidently, sipping her wine as she spoke at length about her grand renovation plans. My parents beamed at her, their smiles wide and untroubled as if nothing had happened. My hands trembled slightly as I prepared to speak, rehearsing the devastating truth I was about to reveal. Just as I summoned the courage to interrupt. As I stood outside the dining room, my mother's voice drifted clearly from the next room, filled with pride as she spoke to a guest. "Yes, we generously helped Eva with Kim's funds. Eva deserved it far more considering how much she's overcome. Kimberly will manage, she always does." Her words pierced deep, reigniting the fresh wound of betrayal. Taking a steadying breath, I stepped deliberately into the dining room, feeling the weight of every gaze shifting toward me. "Actually," I began calmly, my voice steady despite my racing heart, "there's something you all should know." My father's expression darkened. "Kimberly, this isn't the time," he interrupted sternly, irritation flashing in his eyes. Ignoring him, I continued, unwavering. "I filed fraud charges against you both." A stunned silence crashed over the room, thick and suffocating. My parents' faces drained of color, disbelief quickly morphing into outrage and panic. Eva's confident demeanor shattered instantly, her eyes widening with sudden fear. "How could you do something so cruel, Kimberly?" my mother gasped, genuine shock and anger lacing her voice. I met her gaze directly, my voice cold and unyielding. "Cruel? You took my future and gave it away. You forged my signature, lied, and drained my life savings without a second thought." Eva's composure broke completely, her voice trembling with anger and desperation. "You're destroying our family." "No," I replied, unwavering. "You did that yourselves. You taught me exactly how to prioritize family. You just weren't part of mine." The room erupted into chaos, accusations and denials flying furiously, but for the first time I felt entirely calm. Their words no longer had power over me. They had assumed I would quietly endure their betrayal, but I had chosen differently. As the shouting continued, I stepped outside, breathing in deeply, free from guilt or doubt. The truth was finally out, and there was no going back. The days following my revelation felt surreal. Reality set in swiftly as legal actions unfolded with merciless precision. My once proud, untouchable parents were now under the harsh glare of public scrutiny. Newspaper headlines exposed their betrayal, each word another dagger twisting into the reputation they had so carefully crafted. Eva, initially defiant, quickly unraveled, consumed by panic and anger as she realized she stood to lose everything. Her prized home, bought with my stolen future, was no longer secure. Her messages became desperate, swinging wildly between pleas for forgiveness and furious blame. One night she called, her voice ragged with hysteria. "Kimberly, you're ruining my life. Do you even understand that?" she screamed. "Everything is falling apart because of you." I held the phone tightly, steadying myself before answering. "I'm not the one who tore this family apart," I said, my voice calm despite the storm raging in my chest. "You chose to take what wasn't yours. You all made choices. Now you have to face them." Her furious cries collapsed into broken sobs, filled with self-pity, with fear. But I refused to yield. I had let guilt and misplaced loyalty trap me for far too long. I had broken free, and I wasn't going back. Yet in the quiet moments, doubt still crept in. Late at night, sleepless and weary, I questioned myself. Was I cruel for holding them accountable? Had I destroyed my own family? The emotional turmoil felt endless, a battle between justified anger and the lingering, impossible longing for their acceptance. In those dark hours, it was Richard who anchored me. One evening, as we sat together on his porch, I finally voiced the conflict gnawing at me. "They were my parents, Richard," I whispered, tears spilling freely. "Part of me still loves them, even after everything. Is that wrong?" His gaze softened with understanding. "Love isn't wrong, Kim, it's natural. But loyalty doesn't belong where it isn't returned." He exhaled deeply, his voice firm yet kind. "They chose Eva again and again at your expense. They left you no other choice. You deserved better." His words resonated deep, quieting the storm of doubt within me. A balm to wounds still raw. A reminder that my worth was never defined by their acceptance. And just like that, the guilt began to fade, replaced by the steady certainty that I had done the right thing, no matter how painful. Meanwhile, the consequences of their betrayal unfolded without mercy. Their finances crumbled under legal scrutiny, forcing them to sell their home and assets. Public humiliation followed swiftly as friends and neighbors learned the truth they had tried so hard to conceal. Eva, unwillingly thrust from her pedestal, was forced to sell her house, her illusions of superiority shattered by the harsh reality she had long ignored. And despite everything, I felt no regret. I maintained my distance, refusing to be drawn into their manipulations again. Eva's messages grew increasingly desperate, swinging wildly between self-righteous anger and tearful apologies. Each message tested my resolve, but Richard's reassurance anchored me. "Remember, Kim," he reminded me gently, "they brought this upon themselves. You deserve peace, free from their emotional blackmail." Slowly I began reclaiming my life. Financially independent and emotionally stronger than ever before, each step forward felt lighter. A growing realization took root. The family I had yearned for wasn't bound by blood but built on genuine love, trust, and respect. One evening, Eva called again, desperation dripping from every word. "Kimberly, please. I'm your sister. Help me." For a moment, old habits urged me toward compassion. But then I remembered her betrayal, her arrogance, her utter disregard. "Eva, I can't," I replied calmly, confidently. "Not anymore." Her silence spoke volumes. I ended the call, finally free from the chains of guilt. The family dynamics had completely shifted. Now they were the ones experiencing accountability. It was poetic justice, Undeniable proof that actions had consequences no matter how long delayed. Standing on Richard's porch, breathing in the crisp night air, I embraced the clarity that had come from pain. The hardest battles had brought the deepest growth. And finally I could move forward without looking back. In the months that followed, I thrived in ways I had only dreamed of before. Freed from the shadow of my family's betrayal, my life finally felt like my own. Each day brought newfound confidence, opportunities untainted by manipulation or expectation. Richard remained my steadfast supporter, cheering me on through every success and guiding me gently through every obstacle. I purchased my first home, a cozy bungalow on the outskirts of town. Standing on the front porch, keys clutched tightly in my hand, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. It was more than just a house. It was a symbol of every struggle I had overcome, every painful lesson learned, and every ounce of resilience I had found within myself. Professionally, I advanced quickly, earning recognition at work that validated years of unnoticed effort. Colleagues valued my insights, respected my contributions, and acknowledged my potential in ways my family never had. Each accomplishment reinforced the truth I had fought so hard to embrace. My worth was not measured by others' opinions, but by my own integrity and determination. Still, moments of reflection occasionally caught me off guard. One afternoon, driving home from work, I spotted a help-wanted sign in the window of a local diner. Instinctively, Eva came to mind. For a brief moment, I imagined sending her a picture, wondering if she had finally hit rock bottom. But the thought passed just as quickly, replaced by a quiet, peaceful acceptance. I chose not to reach out, not from spite or bitterness but from understanding. Our paths had diverged irreparably, and I no longer felt responsible for her choices or their consequences. Letting go, I drove past the diner, a faint smile playing across my lips. It was a small victory, but significant nonetheless. Despite everything, Eva still sent the occasional desperate message, begging for financial help or forgiveness. Each one tugged at old, buried emotions. But I remained firm. Because for the first time in my life, I was free. I had learned that forgiveness didn't mean sacrificing boundaries, nor did compassion mean opening myself up to further harm. With each firm but gentle refusal, I reclaimed a piece of myself. Pieces once surrendered to misplaced loyalty. As time passed, the space left by my family's absence gradually filled with genuine connections and authentic friendships. Colleagues became close friends. Neighbors turned into companions. And Richard's quiet, steady presence anchored my newfound community. These relationships showed me what true family could look like, built on mutual respect, trust, and kindness. On a sunny weekend morning, Richard and I sat together on my porch, sipping coffee in comfortable silence. Eventually he turned to me, his gaze filled with warmth and pride. "Kim, you've come so far. Watching you take back your life has been incredible. I hope you see how strong you truly are." Tears filled my eyes, but this time they weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you, Richard. You were always there when I needed someone most." He smiled gently, patting my hand. "I may have been here, but you're the one who made it happen. You chose strength over bitterness, self-respect over guilt. You built a life worth celebrating." His words resonated deeply, reinforcing everything I had learned and embraced. For the first time I truly understood, family wasn't about blood. It was about the people who chose to love and support you, even at your weakest moment. And in that clarity I found peace. The toxic ties that had once held me captive were severed completely, replaced by a network of love, trust, and respect. With a heart unburdened by guilt, I finally knew what true freedom felt like. I stood, stretching comfortably in the sunlight, breathing deeply, savoring the calm, the quiet contentment of my new beginning. The past had shaped me, but it no longer defined me. I was ready to step confidently into whatever future lay ahead, knowing I had earned every moment of joy, every ounce of peace.